I want to thank Mr. Burke, Mr. Caggett, Dr. Metzger, Mr. McAvoy, and Mr. Gilbert specifically. Those are the gentlemen we've interacted with, for inviting Christina and myself to join you tonight. I am Director of Community Relations and for the PROMISE Registry, and Christina is a project manager for the registry. So tonight we're going to be talking about genes, gene mutations, and how they can cause prostate cancer. We'll also be introducing PROMISE, as we've already discussed, a registry of prostate cancer patients who are participating in a research study to learn how genetic differences can affect treatments and outcomes. And we hope that after seeing this presentation tonight, that you might consider learning more and even participating in it. So here's our team. Here's our professional team. You'll be hearing from a couple of them this evening. Leading the PROMISE Registry are principal investigators, Dr. Heather Cheng from the University of Washington and Dr. Channing Poller of Johns Hopkins University. Mr. Justin Lorentz is our genetics counselor on the study. He provides guidance in both genetic counseling and also in providing results of the study to patients. And finally, Jake Vinson, who is the CEO of the Prostate Cancer Clinical Trials Consortium out of Memorial Sloan Kettering, and he manages the PROMISE study, his team. Throughout today's presentation, I'll be providing some information about PROMISE. However, I want you to hear from the experts. So the information on the prostate cancer piece and the genetics will be provided by Dr. Cheng, Dr. Poller, and Mr. Lorentz. Unfortunately, they can't be with us tonight, but so I've got some recorded information about their sections. I do have a request, Christina and I have a request, that after tonight's presentation, we're going to ask Dr. Metzger to send you a survey and just take a couple of minutes and fill out the survey, because we want these presentations to be really valuable and helpful to you. So we'd like to hear from you afterwards and let us know what worked, what didn't work, or what you might suggest. So thank you. Great. Okay. So back to Mr. Lorentz, our genetics counselor.
Okay, so we'll discuss genes and cancer risk and why your genes matter. So the body is made up of many, many cells. Skin is made up of skin cells, eye is made up of eye cells, and prostate is made up of prostate cells. And in each of our cells is our genetic information. And for the purposes of this talk, I like to group genetic information into genes. Genes are very long pieces of DNA. They have instructions that tell our body how to grow and how to function. Essentially, each gene has a job that it does. Again, for the purposes of talking about prostate cancer genetics, I like to focus on cancer protecting genes. And the role of these genes, or their job, is to protect the cell from becoming cancerous. The common and most well-known cancer protecting genes are the genes BRCA1 and BRCA2. They're oftentimes called BRCA, BRCA1 and BRCA2. And so these are examples of cancer protecting genes that we look at. Next slide. So most genes are perfect. They don't have any mistakes or mutations. They're working completely fine and doing their job as expected. But sometimes genes do have mutations, which are kind of a good analogy is like a spelling mistake. And when a gene has a mistake or a mutation, it means that it can't do its job as well. And most mutations are acquired over time. If someone goes out in the sun and they're not wearing sunscreen and they get sunburn, their skin gets red and it comes off. And in that case, what's happening is the radiation from the sun is burning the skin, causing a bunch of mutations, and the body is saying, hey, you know what, these cells have too many mutations in them. We're going to discard them and grow some new cells. If people are smoking, the chemicals from the smoke can impact the lung cells and cause genetic damage that way. Sometimes just a cell dividing can cause a mistake or mutation in the division process. And so it's very natural for cells to accumulate mutations throughout time, and there's lots of processes that the body has to either fix those mutations or mistakes, or say, hey, that cell, too many mistakes have happened, it's gonna take one for the team, and that cell's gonna die. Some mutations are actually inherited. They're passed on from one generation to the next. In the terms of cancer genetics, we call these hereditary cancers, where there's a gene mistake or mutation in mom or dad that's passed on to the next generation. Now, this is actually quite rare. Most mutations happen by chance or through exposure to things. Most mutations are acquired. Next slide. And so when cells acquire enough mutations in cancer protecting genes, they can come down this, kind of slippery slope of becoming cancerous. And so cells with many mutations in cancer protecting genes are ultimately cancer. And so ultimately cancer is when a healthy cell accumulates multiple mutations over time. And if it collects the right mutations in the wrong genes, these cancer protecting genes, it can start going down the slippery slope of becoming cancerous. Next slide. So like I said before, most mutations happen by chance, and as a result, most cancers actually happen by chance through this accumulation of mutations over time. Few cancers are caused because of a gene mutation that's inherited from either mom or from dad. Again, they call these hereditary cancers. And what we have here on this diagram shows a woman and a man, and we have two copies of each gene. And so the woman has two copies, the man has two copies, and then in one copy on that man, it's shaded in, and that's meant to represent a mutation. When individuals go on to have children, they pass on either one copy of their gene pair or the second copy of their gene pair. It's one or the other. And so as a result, if there's a mistake or a mutation in one copy, there's a 50% chance that copy gets passed on to the next generation, or 50% chance the second copy without the mutation is passed on. We call this dominant form of inheritance. And ultimately what that means is that if somebody has an inherited gene mistake or mutation themselves, there's a 50% chance they can pass that on to the next generation, 50% chance they don't. Next slide. So genetic testing can get involved at a couple of kind of parts throughout this medical journey. Sometimes right at diagnosis, people can be referred off for genetic testing. Sometimes while an oncologist is deciding what kind of treatment options are available, they may say, hey, genetic tests might be really helpful in helping me decide what would be the best treatment. And so there's a couple of different spaces where genetic testing can be incorporated into a patient's medical journey. Next slide. And so that's it for me. We'll move on to case studies.
I think in the next bit, what we want to share with you is that there's been tremendous progress in understanding why and how knowing about inherited BRCA2 and other genes can be really important and positively impactful for patients from knowing this information. This has really important implications for treatment now, which we now have 2 FDA-approved agents. We have clinical trials that we want to make sure patients are aware of so that we can advance some of the knowledge and do even better than we currently have. So this is a rapidly evolving field. There's a lot of exciting possibilities, but we can't offer them to you as patients if we don't know that you have these mutations. And so this is part of our mission, and part of our goal is the PROMISE study is to make sure you know about this opportunity to find out if you have one of these inherited cancer risk genes. So we already know that 1 in 20 men with localized prostate cancer, meaning prostate cancer that's still only in the prostate, might have one of these mutations. And we have increasingly clinical trials that might be available for patients who fit in that category. We also know that 1 in 10, as I said earlier, 1 in 10 men with cancer that's spread outside the prostate have these mutations. And we also have not only clinical trials, but also new FDA-approved agents. So this is all really important, in addition to what Justin just talked about for family implications. So next slide, please. All right, so currently we have some really wonderful things in our treatment toolbox for prostate cancer, but it's still largely kind of what we would consider one size fits all, which is people with prostate cancer get their diagnosis, maybe they get a Gleason score and their PSA, and this helps us decide about surgery versus radiation, but then the treatments after that are not really tailored to the same extent that we think is possible. This is changing, but not fast enough. And we need to gather more information to sort of move this more quickly. So the idea here is that if we understand the genetics of the cancer, both in the underlying genetic risk that might be inherited, and we understand what's in the cancer, that we can begin to tailor treatment better, that we can understand which treatments will work well, which treatments have no effects, and which treatments might not only not work well, but also have side effects. So we really want to avoid those. So this is all to sort of personalize and help learn more to tailor our treatments. And that's one of our goals as part of the PROMISE study. Next slide, please. So the future, what I alluded to, is using this information, both genetic information about what's inherited, which is what PROMISE is looking to understand, but also other factors to advance knowledge and be able to tailor treatment better, understand which treatments work better for which types of cancers associated with which genetic backgrounds. And I think that's something that we have to work together to do by assembling information on multiple genes and over the course of many treatments, not necessarily one clinical trial or one treatment, but the spectrum of all of the treatments somebody gets and what happens with them, and learning the most we can from that experience. Next slide, please. So this is a nice opportunity to introduce James's story. So we'll hear about his experience.
When I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, I was thrown into the process of, what do I do now? So I went to my doctor and she said, let's look at your family history. And when she saw that data, she said, okay, that family history combined with the fact that you have prostate cancer, you really should have this test. When I got the results that I have the BRCA2 gene mutation, we reached out to both our daughters and explained to them why it would be a good idea for them to be tested. Both my daughters got tested. One was negative, one was positive. She knows what to do regarding each of the cancers that she is more susceptible to. And she recently said to me, Dad, I'm so glad I know, because I feel more in control. To me, knowledge is power, and knowledge leads to better control and better decision making.
All right, so I think here's where I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Dr. Power.
Thank you, Dr. Cheng. I'm excited to tell you guys the details of the PROMISE Registry. So at its core, it's really a network. The more people that sign up, the more we learn and the more people we can help. Next slide. The goal of PROMISE is to bring precision medicine to the fight against prostate cancer. It's a unique opportunity for patients, physicians, and researchers to collaborate to help improve and save the lives of prostate cancer patients both now and in the future.
Okay, and now I'm going to jump in, and Christine, I'm going to have to ask you to help me advance the slides. So you can see this map of the United States the explanation of what PROMISE stands for, the acronym, a PROMISE Cancer Registry of Outcomes and Germline Mutations for Improved Survival and Treatment Effectiveness. The registry opened just about a year ago May actually. It's open to men over the age of 18 who have been diagnosed with prostate cancer. They can be at any stage of treatment or survivorship and from all over the United States, including Alaska, Hawaii, and the territories. In order to get a wide range of information, genetic information, we want to attract and enroll a diverse population. So we're hoping that by providing this registry to a diverse population, we might be able to attract some folks who, because of financial or logistical constraints, aren't usually able to participate in things like that. So that's why everything in PROMISE is absolutely free, and we're trying to get the word out to as many as we possibly can. Currently, we've attracted about over 1,800 people to the study, and we're looking to register 5,000. They've come from 47 states and from 23 medical centers around the country. By screening 5,000, we're hoping to attract 500. Okay, please advance, Christina. So here's how it works. First, go to our website, www.prostatecancerpromise.org, and we'll show this to you later on. We'll make sure that you've got that information to determine if you think the study is right for you, and register. We'll share the link again, like I said. Talk it over with your doctor if you like. Fill out the online eligibility form, and if you are eligible, you will be asked to provide some answers and to answer some additional questions. Next, Color Health, who is our partner, is the medical grade genetic testing partner. They'll send you a saliva test kit. We talked about this a little bit before we went online tonight. And yeah, it's simple. You just spit into a tube. That's all. We send you the kit in the mail. You spit in the tube. You can do this right at home. And then you turn around and send it back to us in the prepaid envelope. So it's really quite easy. In about 6 or 7 weeks, you'll get the results. And the results will tell you if you have a family inherited genetic mutation or not. Next, you'll review your results with a color genetic counselor if you choose, and your physician. Eligible patients will be invited to complete survey every 6 months and share any new medical records, including treatments and diagnostic tests. This is what the registry is all about, keeping this information in one place so that we know what the genetic mutation is, what the individual has gone through as far as any kind of treatments, etc., what's worked, what hasn't, how they felt, etc. And this information will be kept over 20 years' time. Let me show you a quick video here about PROMISE. Christina.
Over 4 million American men are fighting prostate cancer. For many, the disease was written into their genes, but so are instructions to help us discover more about prostate cancer, how to treat it, and your own family's risk of developing the disease. That's why learning more about the genes of men with prostate cancer is so important. And it's why PROMISE was formed. PROMISE is a registry of prostate cancer patients who've joined a research study to advance knowledge about the role our genes can play in health outcomes. It's a collaboration between you, your doctor, and researchers from Johns Hopkins University and the University of Washington. We're asking prostate cancer patients to share their genetic information, their DNA. Your DNA could unlock knowledge about prostate cancer, guide the discovery of new ways to treat it, and help to predict your family's risk of developing it. PROMISE is completely free. Your information will only be used for research and will never be sold to a third party. And you don't have to leave your healthcare provider or even your house. Joining PROMISE is simple. 1. Get registered. Learn if PROMISE is right for you and register online. 2. Get the DNA kit. We'll send you a DNA test kit. A saliva sample is all we need. And 3, get results. You'll receive information tailored to your DNA that helps you understand your disease better. Get started today.
Okay, advance, please. Thanks. So why PROMISE might be right for you? Okay, next. So as they mentioned in the video, more than 4 million American men are dealing with prostate cancer. You may have inherited a tendency towards prostate cancer from a parent. And so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to help doctors understand options and treatments, which just might work better, and can also help you understand how to address family risk, like whether or not it might be something that could be passed on to one of your kids. Next. We talked about genetic counseling. You've met Justin via video. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about it, because not everybody understands why this is important. Genetic counselors are experts in your genes, and they help you understand and help you with decision making. They help you with understanding family risks. So they can tell you what the chances are and how to deal with that sort of thing, how to discuss it, how to, move forward with it. So a prostate cancer diagnosis and identification of an inherited mutation can raise questions. What does it mean for my family? And so the one-to-one conversation with the genetic counselor really helps you understand these things. And this is all provided as part of the PROMISE study. Okay, next, please. So just to review, what does it mean for you and yourself and your family? Opportunity to learn about your genetics and how they may be related to your diagnosis. Implication for your family. You can do it right at home. Learn updates. We produce a newsletter every 6 months, which informs you about the latest in genetic and all prostate cancer. Lots of information, and we'll give this to anybody who registers or enrolls in the study, whether they have the germline mutation or not. So we provide you with newsletters. We provide you with information about clinical trials and how to live with prostate cancer. And you'll help us, it'll help all of us improve future treatments. So, and the benefits, again, like we said, the genetic profile helps, you'll get information, genetic counseling, and lots of updates, and help improve the future treatments. Okay, next. So this is the URL, and we invite you to join us in bringing precision medicine to the fight against prostate cancer. Please check our website and feel free to contact us with any questions. Again, we really value your thoughts and questions, and we try to keep this presentation kind of quick and simple, and we have allowed time for questions, answers. Christina works with Memorial Sloan Kettering, and she is really a research expert, and so she can really answer some great questions that you might have that arose from what you saw so far. So
outstanding.
Yeah, thank you. I'll turn it back to you guys, and you open it up to questions.
Well, I see here in the chat that Bill Power will sign up for the PROMISE study. Bill, do you have any questions or comments? If you want, Bill, unmute yourself either by pressing down on your space bar or clicking the far left icon with the microphone in the Zoom toolbar. While you work on that, Bill, is there anybody else that has any questions that would like to post them in chat?
I finally did it.
Yay!
Thank you, Neil. Sorry for the problem. A little slower on the uptake. Kathy, I am excited to be part of anything about the history of where this is going. The only question I would have, I've had 2 treatments of lutetium-177 out of the country. And are you tracking anything with people with that treatment?
Hi, Neil, thank you so much for joining the study. I'm happy to speak a little bit about that. So,
did you hear that?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Great. And so I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Christina. I work with Kathy on the PROMISE Registry, doing the project management for this registry. So it's a great question. So we're really looking at a broad swath of prostate cancer patients here in the US, right? We don't have a specific sort of criteria based on where you are in your treatment or whether you have localized or metastatic prostate cancer. Really interested in all prostate cancer patients across the US over age 18, and we're really looking at, the relationship of any of these mutations and any treatment that you've had and how that treatment went. So we'd be interested in any kind of treatment that you've had for your prostate cancer, even that which was done outside of the US.
Thank you.
Of course.
Has anyone had the PROMISE test and like to volunteer their experiences for the record?
I'd like to ask something. I have,
Sure.
my name is Lorentz. I have two tests. One of them they did at St. Jude, exactly the same one. You have to give a saliva and takes between 4 to 5 weeks to get the result. And that time they told me I don't have any family history, and the rest of the family doesn't have to worry about it. It's a cancer is not in the family. And I have one 4 weeks ago, a City of Hope. That time they took a blood from me and they did a DNA test and all those one, because they said they're going to use him for some kind of research. And even if he's nothing to do with me, but he's doing the same thing like the PROMISE, he's going to be using for the next 5 years. They're figuring out my prostate cancer, how he's acting, or what the result on the DNA test and everything. I got back a bunch of paper, a lot of numbers on it, but I couldn't figure it out.
Oh,
So
no.
I'm planning. They said that I can call them on City of Hope. We have the phone number. So I'm going to call them, but I'm not sure if they already told me I don't have this history. You still want my saliva and test it out?
Thank you so much for talking a little bit about your previous testing. So that's also a great question. So Kathy mentioned earlier that we're looking for 5,000 men with prostate cancer to register onto the study and then have that genetic testing. And then through the genetic testing, we're hoping to identify 500 men with prostate cancer who they have a mutation in one of those 29 genes that we're going to test for. So, thankfully you tested before and there wasn't any mutation found in your gene. So you don't have to register for this study. But if there's someone here who, has had genetic testing before and has mutation found in their genes, we'd love to have you on the study so we can learn more and learn about treatment effectiveness that relates to your mutation.
My question, what test they did to me, that's a similar test what you guys do, or this is a complete different type of test?
That's a good question. I don't think we really have the answer to it because we're not sure what exactly the City of Hope is testing for. But I would definitely say go back to the City of Hope, like you said you have the number, and I would go back to them and tell them that you're confused and you'd like somebody to walk you through the results that they sent to you, at least.
And like I said, I have another test at St. Jude Hospital in Fullerton, which one they did it the same way with the saliva. The City of Hope test is they took a blood, draw blood, so they did it that way. The St. Jude, they did it the same way like you guys. You have these little things, you have to spit on it for I don't know how many times, certain level, and they take away and they have a result for I think is 3 weeks later or whatever.
What do you think, Christina? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I think sounds like if when you tested with City of Hope and they did genetic testing as well, and they mentioned that there wasn't an increased risk of prostate cancer due to an inherited gene mutation, then you definitely did the same test that we're doing here for PROMISE. It sounds like at the other hospital, City of Hope, I agree with Kathy, you should definitely follow up to clarify what those results are.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
So what if I'm 80 years old and I've had radiation? Should I consider doing the PROMISE study? Will it help me?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So like I mentioned before, we're really looking to learn from broad group of prostate cancer patients here in the US. So it doesn't matter if you've just been diagnosed with prostate cancer or if you've been diagnosed before, finish your treatment, and you're now in follow-up. We'd love to learn from how your treatment went and to see if we could ask that we could do that genetic testing as well. So we'd love to have you on the study. And even though you've had treatment before, having genetic testing done could give you a little bit more information. If there is a mutation found that indicates that you have an increased risk of prostate cancer due to an inherited gene mutation, that information is helpful for you to know and for any of your family members to know as well.
Let's say, for an example, that you've done the test and it came back positive for the BRCA2 gene. How do you find a qualified genetic counselor to discuss this with?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So we actually provide the genetic counselor on study. So we'll get your results back through Color. They're a testing company here in the US. And so Color will also provide a certified genetic counselor for the PROMISE study. And you can schedule an appointment, talk about your results, and they'll answer any questions that you have.
And also understand that all of this is absolutely free of charge. There's no cost whatsoever. It's all absorbed by the study.
Where is the money for the study coming from?
That's a really good question too. So this study is funded through through donors. We are not soliciting funds for this study. It's already been funded, fully funded through a Fidelity fund. A group of donors who are very interested in this particular subject have already fully funded this study. So that's why there are no costs. It's pretty unusual that it's like this, but it's a wonderful opportunity actually. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it is.
Dr. Metzger, do you have anything to share tonight?
Oh, I just was waiting I just want to thank you guys. What a wonderful talk. Very easily to understand. Great slides. Well done. This is, obviously you're not your first rodeo. I have a suggestion though. I think when I was in practice, I think if you put these spit containers in the office, I almost got almost all of my guys when I did a DRE to spit. Some of them just coughed, but that's one way to get more. Neil just coughed.
They're showing you how to do it.
Yeah, that's one way to get more people into it. But we really appreciate your presentation. Just well done. Just in a level that even I understand. So this is very good. We appreciate your help. I think some of our fellows that haven't done it will, and some that have are happy that they have done it. We lost a director several years ago because his HMO wouldn't approve a PARP inhibitor with a BRCA2. Obviously, it was the early days, and then lots went into it. But I've never forgotten that, and I think that the more information you can have, the better off you are, especially in some of our fellows that don't do well. There has to be a reason, and some of the reasons are in these testings. So. Really appreciate you guys' effort.
We appreciate the
Thank you.
opportunity to be able to share information with you. And if you have more questions, actually, the
question.
last slide did have an address for you to send them in, and we will make sure that you get answers. But we'll also be sending you a note with that information on it. So please continue to ask. And
I have a question. I have a comment.
Sure.
I had the PROMISE test, and the main reason I have it is that I'm an Ashkenazi Jew, and there's I guess a 10% chance that that I might have the BRCA2 gene. So I wanted to get the test. I did have a previous test, which was not only family, but was it somatic? Is that what it is?
Yes, the tissue testing.
Yeah, the Oncotype DX, but I didn't know how many genes were covered, because it was quite a while ago. So I did take the test, and if I had to pay out of pocket, it would be $250. So I'm kind of happy. I'm glad I took it, and it gave knowledge. And I think it's important for for us at just as at all stages, say people who are newly diagnosed, who are on active surveillance, they say that maybe 5% of them may have some kind of a gene that could affect their treatment. So, and for people who are more advanced, as the doctor mentioned, if you have some of these gene abnormalities, you could use it as part of a PARP inhibitor, so you could be treated better. So let me ask you, for the average person, is it better for a person to have a blood test first and then, a tissue test first? And then if a person is positive, to figure out if they have a family situation? Would that be the better way of going?
Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, I think that, that's always a question that you want to discuss with your doctor. For sure, through PROMISE, patients can sign up by themselves to get the genetic testing as part of the study, but we always recommend that you touch base with your doctor to, let them know that, hey, I'm interested in doing this study. It's going to involve in genetic testing, so they can also be aware and get ahead of those results for the study as well. So we definitely do recommend that, if you do end up signing up for the study, that you share your results with your physician, because that information, like you mentioned, can be used to determine if there's a better course of treatment for you, or a better medication that can be used to treat your prostate cancer. But for all of these, sort of decisions on what to test first, we definitely recommend that you touch base with your doctor.
Well, Ira just touched on something very exciting, where this is being used to help the individual patient. Is that something we can elaborate on tonight? Specifically, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, of course. So Ira mentioned before PARP inhibitors, right? So PARP inhibitors are a type of treatment, and there are two that were recently approved in 2020. It's rucaparib and olaparib that were approved for patients with prostate cancer and who also happen to have a genetic mutation in BRCA1, BRCA2, and ATM. So knowing, if you have one of these genetic mutations can give you and your physician more information about what types of treatment may be best to move forward with for your prostate cancer.
Okay.
Could I ask you a question, Christina, which is not really part of the PROMISE study, but they have
Sure.
There's something called a Foundation 1 test. Could you talk to that?
Yeah, so, I wish I could, but I don't know as much information about the other tests and their sequencing panels. I'll tell you, there are a lot of other companies that do testing. It's good to touch base with your physician about them, because they may test for different things, which can be used to determine different, directions in terms of your screening, follow-up, and treatment of prostate cancer. That's an excellent question. I wish I could answer it, but it's definitely one for your physician.
I have another, like I had the test. I wonder how many, by raising your hand, could you let me know how many of us have had the test so far? Anybody? Okay.
I've had genetic testing. I'm not sure if it's PROMISE or not, but I've had genetic testing through Kaiser.
I have genetic testing too.
So we had some people raise their hand with the little icons too. I would guess about 6 of us.
Yeah.
I was wondering what's involved in the registration? Is it a real long, lengthy, or is it short?
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. So the study you can learn about online on our website, and we'll send that to you guys after. So if you're interested in registering, you can click join us on the website. And I would say it takes about maybe 10 minutes to get registered. So we'll ask for an email address, shipping address for the saliva kit, and then some information about your previous health history and your family history. And so once you fill that out and enter in the shipping address for your saliva kit, we'll send you over that saliva kit for the study. And of course, one thing that's important to know is for any research study you sign on to, we'll have an informed consent form that provides all the details on the study. So we'll give that to you to read through. If you're ready, you can sign it. But if not, you can definitely always reach out to us with any questions that you have. And we also have a video right on that page where you see the consent form and you can watch it to learn more about all the details of the PROMISE study.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
How is this different than an oncotype test?
Yeah, definitely. That's also a really great question. And again, I wish I could talk more to the other types of tests, which there are many for both DNA testing and tumor testing, but that's definitely a better question for your physician.
Okay. One of the advantages of live participation here is you get the chat, you get everybody's questions, and you also get some information here as to how to contact PROMISE.
Christina, is
Yes.
is this test geared solely to people with prostate cancer, or could anybody have it with like would some of these genes show if you have a stomach problem or things like that? And if is it for men and women or men only?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ira. So for this study, the only group eligible are patients with prostate cancer living here in the US. So we're looking for, any men out there with prostate cancer. And to answer the other part of your question, so we're going to use Color's hereditary cancer gene panel for the study. So that gene panel has 29 genes on it that we're going to search for any kind of mutations. And so those 29 genes are not only associated with prostate cancer, you have genes associated with breast cancer, ovarian, and a whole bunch of other common cancers, right, that have possible genetic components. So when you get genetic testing for PROMISE, you're not only getting tested for any kind of susceptibility genes related to prostate cancer, you're also getting tested for genes related to a host of other cancers as well. So that, we hope you'll find helpful for both yourself and for your family as well.
Does anybody else have any questions for the team tonight?
And don't forget, you can always send them in and they will be answered.
Okay. Would you like to make a shameless plug for your website, because it's an excellent website packed with details? Would you like to do that while we have a little time tonight?
Sure, thank you. So I will type in the website URL in the chat, but we are at prostatecancerpromise.org. And definitely feel free to check out the website. We have an excellent page on Dr. Cheng, Dr. Paller, and Justin, who you heard from earlier today. We also have a bunch of videos from them explaining the research, as well as some patients like James, who you just heard from. And we have a great fact section with frequently asked questions that people have had about the study.
I want to thank Christina and Kathy. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you very
and
much.
sharing so much important information.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a
All
great
right.
night.
Thank you. You too.